How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Skyline Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Hartman, joined as always by my good friend and co-host from the West Coast, Nick Normand. Nick, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Jack. I'm doing well. I had a lovely long weekend, and I didn't realize until it happened how insane this weekend was with so much stuff going on. Of course, the weekend we've been having the World Cup recently, which has been electric. And we had
Mhm.
Father's Day this last weekend, of course, and we had Juneteenth. And we also had something else that I'm blanking on for some reason. Oh, we had summer solstice. We also had summer solstice. That's the last thing. We had
Yeah.
four giant things going on in the same weekend. And I had a lovely 3 day weekend. I had Friday off, and most of my family wasn't around. And so I was free to go about the city doing whatever I wanted. And it was a really
Cool.
lovely weekend. How about you, Jack? How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was good. This is the first Father's Day in quite a few years that I got to be with my dad, so that was really awesome and obviously, really good to be there. And yeah, it was a really solid weekend. It was nice weather, not too warm, and yeah, just all in all a good time. Not a 3 day weekend for me, but still was nice nonetheless. Finished up with Vacation Bible School last week, so it was a long week for sure. And definitely enjoyed my my Saturday and my Sunday off. So yeah, no, it was really good. But today we are going to be doing our top 10 quarterbacks going into the 2026 season. Okay. And we tried to sort of come up, make sure we had the same parameters as to what sort of we were rating top 10. Um, and we were, going into it thinking about, like, okay, if we had these guys fully healthy for a season, but also in their same situation that they're in, right? Because of course you can make lots of arguments. The obvious one that everyone likes to make is, if Joe Burrow had, the Rams offensive line and defense and weapons, like that sort of thing. So it's the situation that they are in going into the 2026 season. And so we're going to get right into it. Nick, why don't you lead us off with who you have at number 10?
Sure. So my number 10, I'm not going to give away my honorable mentions yet, just so we know if I might have them in my top seven, eight,
Yeah.
nine, 10 area. But my number 10 quarterback, rookie sensation 2 years ago, led one of the most efficient offenses for the time. He's a player that incredibly fun to watch. That will be Jaden Daniels. Washington was a disaster before Jaden Daniels got there. He got there with a brand new head coach and offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury, who has gotten run out of town from his alma mater, from the Cardinals. He's an offensive coordinator that supposedly everybody believes his offense kind of wears down during the season and it kind of deteriorates as people get film. And Jaden Daniels was able to win in that offense with mediocre weapons in the playoffs, taking Washington to the NFC Championship game. I know it was only one season. I know it was his rookie season and nobody had seen him before, but that was incredibly impressive. It's kind of comparable in a way to rookie season Lamar when 2018, nobody had seen Lamar Jackson really yet since college. And he took over for Joe Flacco and he started leading this offense with this run first sort of style. But then they ran up against the Chargers, who they had played in the regular season in the playoffs, and then got stomped. And Lamar Jackson looked bad because his offense was actually guardable when you got to see him a couple of times. And it was kind of a novelty, and you could kind of prepare for it in a certain way. There was a guardable way of going about things with him back then before he developed as a passer. Jane Daniels does not have that sort of hole like Lamar Jackson did back in 2018. Jaden Daniels is a passer, incredibly efficient. As a decision maker, incredible. Barely throws any balls into traffic. And that offense that they were running was very dink and dunk, very making the efficient play, running when you could, getting positive yardage. But then he could punish you with his deep ball as well to Terry McLaurin that year, who Terry McLaurin's obviously a really good wide receiver. But he had Terry McLaurin and like De'Ami Brown and Noah Brown and like just cast-offs besides that. And he was able to produce incredibly efficient offense. He was unguardable. Even against my Steelers, where we beat them that game, he played a great game of football. I think that Jaden Daniels, his biggest issue is his potential health concerns since he's skinny. But he's not even like some of these other skinnier mobile quarterbacks in that he's tall. He's like 6'4". And so he doesn't have the height issues where he can't see over the offensive line. I'm concerned that he might wear down during the season just with his health because of that skinny factor. And we saw that last year with injuries. But I think taking injuries away from it, he's an incredible player who kind of comes to what rookie CJ Stroud looked like, where he looked wise beyond his years and just had an incredible rookie season. CJ Stroud obviously deteriorated not due to injury, and we don't know necessarily what's going to happen with that. But Jaden Daniels offers a peak and a professionalism and a level of play that I think is hard to come by in the league. And having him be at 10, I think, could be a massive understatement when we see him bounce back this season. But I have Jaden Daniels at 10. I think he's an incredible player.
Okay, Jaden Daniels, starting off your list at number 10. My number 10 QB is Justin Herbert. And so I'm going with Justin Herbert. This might be low for Herbert, but I am now at the point that I'm like, you know what? We got to see we got to see it. We got to see it, and we got to see it when it matters. His 2021 season was, his real like breakout season. He that was his second year in the league. He threw for 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns. That was great. And yes, if we, can see that again, then we know that it's in there, then we know what this guy can be. The problem is we haven't seen that since. And the last 3 years, he hasn't surpassed 4,000 passing yards and hasn't gone over 26 touchdowns. I don't know. And we haven't seen it when it's mattered. It hasn't happened in the playoffs. His playoff performances have been really, really bad. And so I still think that he is incredibly talented, but every other guy that I have on this list has shown playoff success, and he hasn't. And so I've got Justin Herbert coming into this season at 10. I am fully prepared to be proven wrong if, they can right the ship when they get to the playoffs, if the Chargers can do that, but it hasn't happened yet, and I'm starting to fear that maybe we've seen what his peak is, and that is an above average regular season quarterback. Not more than above average, a very good top 10 in the league regular season quarterback, but can't put it together when it matters most.
Mm-hmm. And Justin Herbert, obviously, he's an incredibly talented player. But the O-line questions, like everybody always brings it up, where it's like his offensive line's always injured, his team's always injured. And like, I don't know if people overstate it or not, but how bad the interior of his O-line has been for the better part of his career. And then last year with his tackles getting injured, I just don't know how to weigh that with how bad statistically PFF and other outlets measured his offensive line and how much that actually mattered for him when he's so big and so durable, considering that. But Justin Herbert's so good. It's just the playoffs have been disasters for him, but he's really good still.
And again, top 10 quarterback in the league. Like, especially in such a talented quarterback league that we have right now, that is still very, very good. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, not higher than 10 for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I like Herbert a lot, man. Moving on to my number 9 quarterback, that will be Jordan Love. This does feel a little bit high for Love, I think. But I think that when you actually sit down and you watch him and you realize the sort of player that he is, it's a player who has all the tools. It's a player who had time to sit and develop behind Aaron Rodgers. It's a player who got developed by a great offensive coordinator and head coach. And I think it's a dude that's really overcome some issues with his team where, like, they've been looking for a wide receiver one for years and years and years. And I don't think it's his fault that a wide receiver one hasn't emerged. It feels like it's the drafting and the actual players that are around him that's caused more of the wide receiver issue than him. And it feels like Tucker Kraft's injury and Micah Parsons' injury derailed what could have been an amazing season for them. I think Jordan Love, his highs are so high, his efficient month or twos of football looks so good. I do think in certain spots he can throw the game away, so to speak, with some of his decisions. He has a kind of Brett Favre sort of quality to him, where the game against San Francisco in the playoffs, throwing the ball like off his back foot, that really hurt. But I think that he's a player that as he gets closer and closer to 30 and into his 30s, his decision making is going to be much improved. And I think that each season as it passes on, we're going to see a more developed sort of player who still has all the tools and still hasn't had any upper body injuries, where he has all the arm strength, all of the ability to fit a ball in. He has audacity to make throws where in the seam, over the middle, deep balls, he's aggressive. I just really like everything Jordan does, except for some of the interceptions. And I think that when he puts it all together, he could be up in this top 5 sort of area if he does. I don't know if that's going to be this year, but he's the kind of dude who I would want to bet on in if he does reach that sort of ceiling, what it does look like. So I've got Jordan Love, number 9.
Yeah. I won't even change the banner. I also have Jordan Love at number 9. That's where I
Damn.
have him too.
Let's go.
The only other thing that I would add is, and this seems weird and backwards, but I want to see him be more aggressive and also be better aggressive. So like the times that he's aggressive, sometimes it's just bad. But like the last 2 years, he's started 15 games and he's only thrown 3,300 yards. You know, like I think, and he can play at a higher level. The previous season, he started 17 games and threw for 4,200 yards and 32 touchdowns instead of 3,325 touchdowns. You know, so I think that he can, like you said, reach that next tier, reach that higher level. But I also think he needs to get, you know, better at being aggressive, like I said. Because again, like his completion percentage was 66%, which isn't fantastic, but it's not terrible either. So like it's not like, oh well, if he completed 10% more of his passes, you know, that would get up to league standard, you know, and then those yards would be there. It's like, well, that's not it, you know. So and I think that the help of a true wide receiver one would help there too. I'll turn it over to you for your number 8.
Yeah. And just bringing up Jordan Love again with what you're talking about, comparing him to a dude like Caleb Williams, who has an atrocious completion percentage, but is aggressive like that. It's like, okay, if Jordan Love dropped from 66% down to 64%, but cut out a couple of interceptions, but was able to ramp up a couple of the big deep downfield plays, I think that's a winning football player if you can ramp up that selective aggression and not throw interceptions like that. So I really think Jordan Love, like you're saying, there are just tweaks, I think. I think if you just tweak him, you could get a really high-end quarterback, and he's already really good.
Yeah.
Yep. Love Jordan Love. A dude who I think I might have a little higher than you, that will be Dak Prescott at number 8. I'm really high on Dak Prescott considering what he once was and how he was once thought of. I just think that Dak Prescott has kind of aged like a fine wine. He's 32 right now, and I think he's just kind of started developing into his own the last 2-3 years, where as a professional, as a leader, he's always been good. He's been incredible on the podium, being a leader in the locker room. But I think his ability to play in multiple systems, where Shoddy's system compared to the early days, compared to the McCarthy days, like it feels like the changeover at head coach and OC has happened over and over again. And Prescott has had winning seasons with all sorts of different dudes. He's had really productive years with all sorts of different coaches. And I think his ability to manage games is an incredibly high level of play for him, for his tools and his skill set. Where Dak Prescott does throw some audacious throws, but he knows when to throw up a one-on-one to CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens. He knows when to dump it off to Javonte Williams or to his tight end. He knows how to dink and dunk his way down the field, or to select, I'm going to throw a big throw here. I'm going to aggressively push the pace for this offense. And I think he offers some play extension that wasn't there when he injured his ankle a couple of years ago, where he injured his ankle and then he looks tentative in the pocket. Now he was looking a lot more comfortable on that ankle this last year. And I think the further away he gets from that, We see him be comfortable in and out of the pocket as a mover. And I think that his ability to produce good offense in structure and out of structure is one of the highest levels in the entire league, even though he hasn't won at a high level. I think if this defense can be good, they can win the division this year. Like even average, they can win the division this year. The ability to put up the season that he just did with George Pickens being the diva that he is, George Pickens incredibly talented, but Dak Prescott's been the best quarterback he's had and really kept him under control for the better part of a season and produced incredibly well. I just love what Dak Prescott is now, where it feels like these mature quarterbacks who beyond their years has played well, but now sort of has control over the entire offense, over the team, that if the talent can get to a level and he can get a playoff scenario where he's not getting badly outcoached by the other team's head coach, we could see a nice run by Dak Prescott here. This could be Dak Prescott's best year as far as like what the team looks like and into the playoffs, I think, in 2026. I love me some Dak Prescott.
All right. Well, this is where I bring in my number 8, and my number 8 is Jared Goff. I've got Jared Goff at number 8. He is by far a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. It is not a question in my mind. I think that, some people might say that I'm biased, but I think that 8 is actually a very fair place to put him. If you look at his numbers over the last few years, like last year, obviously Detroit underperformed as a team, right? It was like, oh man, it was a bad year. The offense didn't look as good, whatever. His numbers last year, still 4,500 yards, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and completed 68% of his passes. That was like a bad year for the Lions compared to the previous 2 years, right? And so I think that he is a very, very good quarterback. He's very good at what he is asked to do. He's very good at playing with his back to the line of scrimmage when they run their play action stuff a lot. He's very good at that. He's very decisive. He takes care of the football. It's rare that he's putting the ball in harm's way. There's stuff that happens sometimes, but like I think about 2 years ago when they beat Houston in overtime and he had 5 picks, and you look at a few of them and it's like, okay, tipped ball, batted ball off the hands of the receiver, those sorts of things that it's like, those happen to all quarterbacks, right? But anyway, he keeps the ball out of harm's way. He's incredibly efficient. And of course he's got one of the best systems around him, both with what he has weapon-wise, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, and also having a really, really stout offensive line as well. I think that Jared Goff at 8 is a very, very fair place for him.
Mm-hmm. I think Jared Goff's a really good quarterback, of course. I think he's developed into something that he never was with the Rams, which is a dude who can manage the game at such a high level where you can produce elite offense with him when everything's going right. That's my concern. When things go wrong, they did win the game, I believe, against Houston. But, man, everything was going wrong for him. And I don't know that his bad games, he can pull himself out of bad games. Even if he can win, I don't know that he can pull good play out of bad play in that way. But he's really good. And he's, for a number 1 pick that flamed out with his first team, that got thrown overboard for a first-round pick, basically, to take him. Like, they got Jared Goff and a first-round pick to take that contract in the Matt Stafford deal. Like, going from that to being a valuable winning quarterback, I think is an incredible turnaround for him. And he's going to be in Detroit for the rest of his career, I think. I think he has proven to be a Lion in that way, and I really love that for him. Moving on to my number 7, a dude that you've already touched on, that would be Justin Herbert. I know that he doesn't have the playoff successes of some of the other quarterbacks and of basically all the other quarterbacks in the league. He's never won a playoff game. He's really struggled in elimination games, whether that's the game against Oakland to make the playoffs or whether that's the games in the playoffs against the Jaguars and against, was it the Patriots this year, I think? I believe it was the Patriots that they played. Because there was that disaster game, then there was the Texans disaster game against the Patriots. The Patriots had some weird playoff games, that's for sure. Justin Herbert, I think, like my mind with Justin Herbert harkens back to his rookie and second year when he was playing with bums, with like Josh Palmer and the random tight ends and stuff, where like Keenan Allen was around, but Keenan Allen was always inconsistent with his injury issues. And Keenan Allen, of course, being a really productive player, was never the most explosive player and always had those kind of nicks and bruises, missed a couple games, missed big swaths of the season in Phillip Rivers' years. But his ability to produce so young at such a high level and pushing the ball downfield and being able to be a mover, be unguardable in that way. I saw a game that Justin Herbert played against my Steelers on Sunday Night Football a number of years ago. And my Steelers almost won that game in prime time due to tipped passes and punt blocks and weird plays. But it was not Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, we couldn't do anything about. TJ Watt was injured that game. Minka Fitzpatrick was injured that game. It was Cam Hayward, and dudes. And Herbert was just dissecting us. And it was watching a dude like a Josh Allen where it was like, well, you can draw up the perfect defense and it just doesn't matter. He's just going to break it down. And I think Herbert, even though he struggled in the playoffs, it's more been a function of the team crumbling around him or him having some bad luck. And also he has some bad decision making in those stretches. He does. But I think that the injury luck for his team, and I think that the small sample size for elimination games kind of inflates how bad it's been. But like the game that they lost against the Jaguars, their offense was running roughshod and their defense was playing great against the Jaguars. And then their defense completely flipped in the second half and couldn't stop a nosebleed because they changed how they were doing their scheme. That's not on Herbert. And that's a massive collapse that everybody lays at his feet. But that's not him as a player, what he was doing in that game. And I just think a dude where he's so incredibly tall, he's so incredibly thick, he's so strong, he plays through injury a ton, he's tough as hell. Like, he's the kind of dude that I want to bet on with good coaching if they can put players around him and be healthy. Where it's like his wide receiver core has never been great. His offensive line is rarely any good. But this year, with a good offensive coordinator, with a good head coach, with the defense hopefully being coached up, that, man, I think that we're trying to rip him out of his situation. But I just think that he's the kind of dude who I would want to bet on even still at this point. Maybe not after this year, but still at this point, I'm willing to scratch the lottery ticket on Justin Herbert.
Okay. My number 7 quarterback. This is where things get unexpected and shocking. It is Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
It is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, for the majority of his career, has been incredibly healthy. We have not had to see Mahomes come back after an injury. We will see that this year, or a significant injury, right? There's been stuff, nicks and bruises. The turf toe was the big thing, but of course he played through that, until the season ended. He got the surgery necessary on it. So I think that is an important part of this. On top of that, the product that we have seen out of the Kansas City Chiefs the last 2 seasons, and we've seen out of Patrick Mahomes, is not what we have seen before that. In 2024 and 2025, he was not a Pro Bowler. The previous 6 seasons, he was a Pro Bowler, right? And of course, the Pro Bowl is, very insignificant. It's probably the least significant when it comes to all-star of the 4 main professional sports. But still, it is an indicator, right? Last year, while his season was cut a little short, he threw 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. His completion percentage that I just saw was only 62%. That was the worst mark of his career, 62.7. His rookie year, when he only played in 1 game, it was 62.9. Otherwise, we're talking 65.9 at the lowest and moving up from there. So it was not good. I don't like what he has around him. I don't see where they improved at the skill position other than Kenneth Walker, who is a massive improvement at running back. But Kenneth Walker, I mean, we even saw in the Super Bowl, he's not the pass catching running back that you want.
No, he's not.
Um, so, you brought back Travis Kelsey, and there was talk about, hey, maybe they should be the ones to draft the tight end out of Oregon, but no, we're like, we're gonna do another year with Travis Kelsey. Your wide receivers were not great. They haven't been great in years. It's amazing that you won the Super Bowl in 2023. Like, but it has not been in 22, but it has not been good enough. So I don't see how they made things better around him. The offensive line is better than it will be, or will be better than it was last year. So I'll give you that. But even outside of that, back to back seasons where you're throwing under 4,000 yards, back to back seasons where you're having 25 touchdowns. I Max Kellerman proved you never say the plateau thing ever about any quarterback, but especially about the greats. However, I'm seeing stars that are ascending right now at the quarterback position, and Patrick Mahomes right now seems like a star that is descending a little bit. And again, his dissension is still a top 7 quarterback in the NFL to me, right? Like, and honestly, I don't think until he retires we'll ever see him lower than 7. Like, seriously. But right now he is the worst that he has been in his entire career right now, statistically and achievement wise. And so I see guys that I think are rising above him, and so I've got him at 7.
That is insane. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, Mahomes at 7, I understand why you're saying it, coming off the injury, coming off of the play that has been the last couple of years. Wow, that's crazy. Love me some Patrick Mahomes, but he's different. He's different for sure.
Oh,
But
he is. And I think that every single team in the NFL, if they could choose to have him as their quarterback, would, including the teams that have quarterbacks that are ahead of him right now. But we're not talking about the long-term future. We're talking about the 2026 season, right? And I think that not just for him, but also for the Chiefs, 2026 is going to kind of be like the low point of the bell curve before they start their rise up again. They've gotten old. They need to get younger. They've spending a lot of money on some of these old guys. They need to get new money in there to, I mean, there's a reason that their last two, like, lockdown all pro corners, they've traded away instead of signing to long-term extensions because they don't have the money to right now. But this is going to kind of be the low point before they rise back up. That's the way I see it. Again, if we're talking about who you want for the next, not, we don't even need to go like 5-10 years, like the next 3 years. Mahomes is going to be like number 1 or number 2 to me on this list. But 2026 season, I think that the Broncos, I think, are better set up in the AFC West going into this next year than the Chiefs are. I think that the Chargers are not far behind them. Again, the roster concerns that I have with the Chiefs, and as good as Mahomes is, and as gritty as he has been able to be in leading some of these teams to much higher success than the roster would suggest, we also saw a few seasons in a row that it was like, man, the luck has to run out, right? And I think we saw that last year, and I think we'll see that again this year before the rise back up again.
Moving on to my number 6 QB. We're trying to scooch this thing along so we're not going for a million hours. I would have the current reigning MVP in Matt Stafford. I know that it's number 6 and he just won the MVP. And I love Matt Stafford. And I think that number 6, this could be the highest that Matt Stafford could ever be on one of these lists for his entire career, even if he's not what he once was as far as an arm talent. But I love me some Matt Stafford. Just a couple of notes on him. His audacity is crazy. He can still rip a ball, no look, across the field in tight windows. He's insane. He has the veteran craft where him and Devontae Adams never played together. And this year, just an incredible number of touchdowns on the fades and the slants in the end zone. He just has the ability to know where to go and have good chemistry with every receiver he's ever played with. Like, if you look at every receiver he plays with, it's basically their best season when he's there. Calvin Johnson, record-breaking season with Matt Stafford. Of course, best quarterback Calvin ever had, but record-breaking season. Cooper Kupp, when he went for the Triple Crown, Matt Stafford season. Puka Nacua came out of nowhere because of Matt Stafford. Now we have Davante Adams, who had a ton of touchdowns, and he had prime Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football, and now he's producing insanely well with Davante Adams. I just think that Matt Stafford has an incredible ability of pulling out of a player the best that you can get out of them at that point, and that's incredible. But a thing about me, mobile quarterbacks I really like, where Jaden Daniels, of course, at 10, really good player. But the thing is, I don't think you need to be a running quarterback to be viewed highly in my eyes. But Matt Stafford, because of his lack of mobility at this point, really is the drawback for me, where he hasn't had a ton of knee injuries, not a lot of ankle or hip or stuff like that. But he's had I believe it was neck or back injury in the offseason the last couple of years that's kind of hindered him in what he could be. And he was still able to put up an MVP season last season, but that was with an incredible cast of players. With Davante Adams and Puka Nacua, great receiving duo. With a really good offensive line, with a solid defense, with an incredible play caller, where it just felt like everything was falling into place for them. And they came up just short against the Seahawks multiple times, sadly. I love about Matt Stafford that he plays great in big spots. The game against the 49ers and the game against Tampa Bay, the season they won the Super Bowl, were both awesome games by him. Last year, they played 2 games in Seattle, the regular season game in division and then the playoff game in the NFC Championship. He had 3 touchdowns, no picks in the regular season game in Seattle, in the loudest stadium in the league. And then in the playoff game, he had 3 touchdowns, no picks. Against that defense that we say, Nicky Memwari, that deep defensive line, those corners that are incredible, and they have all these blitz packages. And Matt Stafford was able to throw the ball efficiently and at volume. That's something that I really value in quarterbacks, when they can throw the ball effectively when you know they're going to throw it. You know they're going to throw for 4,500 yards, 5,000 yards this season, but you're able to throw it with high levels of efficiency, completing high-end passes, having high depth of target. And Matt Stafford has the ability to scale up to that still at this old age. I love Matt Stafford. I think that he plays well, all things considering. I think that his level of toughness, having grown up in Detroit in his early football years into now, that level of toughness and dealing with bad O-lines has put him in a great position for now. And that's something that I feel about Herbert, that Herbert's dealt with BS offensive lines in questionable situation and questionable health for the rest of the team. And Herbert's got beat to hell. So I think that when Herbert gets a good team around him, he's going to play really well, like Matt Stafford has. But I think that Stafford just has some limitations, with mobility being the biggest one. And mobility is a checkbox that I really want in my top-end QBs. And so Matt Stafford, with that level of limitation, that's why I only have him at 6.
We're not building a Madden quarterback, Nick. We're building a quarterback who wins in the NFL. Like, Matt Stafford at 6 is wild. Okay. My number 6 is Lamar Jackson.
Whoa! Okay.
My number 6 is Lamar Jackson. So last year he only played in 13 games. The Ravens went 6-7 in that span. He threw for only 2,500 yards in 13 games. Only 2,500 yards in 13 games. Not great. 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. There were obviously health concerns that came with this last year. New coach, new everything coming in. I mean, he's still box office and his legs are unbelievable. But I think that, and again, my list is after the 2026 season, if we stack up the quarterbacks 1 through 32, what order are we ranking their seasons in statistically? And not just statistically, but eye test as well. And I've got Lamar Jackson at 6.
Wow. Lamar Jackson, a dude who's an offense unto himself, who's a dude who you can have a good defense who just can't figure him out, because it's like Derrick Henry's going that way, Lamar Jackson's going that way, and he can throw the ball efficiently too. Lamar Jackson's so good, man. Him at 6 is insane to me. He's
Matt Stafford at 6 is insane.
Yeah, and I love that our lists are different. I love that we disagree. It's awesome, man, because Lamar Jackson and Matt Stafford couldn't be more different. And they're
Hmm.
both two MVP quarterbacks who are still really awesome. And they're just completely different. Moving on, I believe I'm at my number 5. So let me just put 5 there. And I've got the young gun, the dude who made it to the Super Bowl, in Drake May. I know that Drake May didn't win the MVP this year, and I know that Drake May didn't win the Super Bowl and looked pretty poor in the Super Bowl. But Drake May, with the supporting cast that he had, with how bad his offensive line was in the playoffs, with his receiving core that was really underwhelming, produced so well in the regular season and was able to play winning football in the playoffs. He looked wise beyond his years throughout the season. Josh McDaniels, of course, terrible head coach, but great offensive coordinator, was able to program the robot immediately. Drake May and Josh McDaniels, from the start of the season, damn nearly, they lost to the Raiders in week 1, but then were just on a tear for the better part of the season. They had a hiccup against the Steelers where there were 5 fumbles and Drake May had 1 interception, and it was a bad interception that lost the game. But he played well in a terrible game, and he played well over the big span of the season. He already has shown me that he has the ability to win in rock fight sort of games. If the game's 14-17, I trust Drake May. If the game's a shootout, we haven't seen that as much, but I think that if he has the requisite players around him to be able to play in a shootout, I think that he can win the shootout. And on top of that, he has the tools to me. He's got a big arm. He's got legs for mobility purposes. He's got pretty damn good decision making considering where he was at coming out of college. I just think that he's a dude on the upswing. He's a dude that is coming off of an MVP runner-up season. He's somebody who I really want to bet on because he's an archetype of quarterback that I love. I love the dude who can gunsling, who can be efficient, who can manage. Think Jaden Daniels with slightly less mobility, but doesn't have the injury concerns and made it all the way to the Super Bowl with a BSier roster in some ways than Jaden Daniels. Like, if he had Terry McLaurin on this team healthy, I think his offense would have been even better this year. And I think that Drake May, because of his thickness, his height, his arm strength, his mobility, he's just my kind of dude. I really like Drake May, and I think he's going to be better and better and better as the next 5 years go on. And I think this year with A.J. Brown, he's going to be great. I love me some Drake May.
I also have Drake May at number 5. I'm not going to change the banner. I also have Drake May at number 5. Everything you said, he completed 72% of his passes last year, which was number 1 in the league. 6 yards away from 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns. He's unbelievable. I think, I talked about when I said that Mahomes is sort of at literally the if there is a bottom for him, I think that's where he is right now. And I think that there are stars that are ascending. And I think that Drake May is one of those stars that's ascending, by all means. And so, so I echo everything you said. I think he'll be even better this year, like you said, with A.J. Brown. Hopefully, they also drafted another offensive lineman this year. Hopefully they can give him a little bit more help up front as well. And yeah, I've got Drake May at number 5.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree with you. I had Drake May at 5. You have Drake May at 5. We think he's a really awesome quarterback, and he's young and so talented. I think now will be a good time, Jack, to bring up some of our honorable mentions as far as guys who just missed the cut. I just had 2 dudes. I had 12 dudes fighting for 10 spots. And those dudes are really different from each other, but play in the same division. That will be Caleb Williams and Jared Goff. Jared Goff, I think, was the tougher cut for me just because he is shown to produce at such a high level. But I think Jared Goff, who knows how to throw the ball efficiently, who knows where to go with it, who can produce great offense and throw at volume and play in a system where he might not throw today. He might just be handing it off to Gibbs, handing it off to Montgomery, or in this case, not Montgomery. I forget who the Kansas City power back who they got it. Pacheco. There are going to be days where he throws it 20 times because they're running the ball a ton. But Goff, in the way that he can be efficient in that way, Caleb Williams can just do things that Jared Goff can. Caleb Williams can extend plays in a way that Jared Goff couldn't dream of. And Caleb Williams' ability to throw the ball off platform or to rip the ball into spots, off balance, sidearm, is something that Jared Goff just can't do. And I think that if we project Caleb Williams to be even better as an efficient passer, even better as a completion percentage sort of dude, and have that high end, I think that Caleb Williams could be amazing. But how big of a step do we expect him to take after he already took a big step this last year? I don't know how big this step's going to be. But both of those dudes, I think, could be clearly in my top 10 this year. But I think that just what they've done combined with what they will be, they seem too much at the polar opposite end, where one's a pure play extender and one's a pure just game manager, not in a bad way, because it's good to be a game manager. Tom Brady was a game manager. Kirk Cousins is a game manager. They're very different, and I just said them in the same breath. But both of them were able to win a bunch of regular season games. Tom Brady, a ton of Super Bowls, and they knew how to dink and dunk the ball, but they also knew when to let it rip. And I think that Jared Goff knows when to let it rip sometimes. So I got to give him some credit. Those would be my two toughest cuts, though.
Yeah, my honorable mentions were Caleb Williams and Baker Mayfield. So that means that we're in our whole pool of 12 people, I guess, where we differ is Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield. Because I'm imagining that your next four are going to be some combination of Allen, Burrow, Jackson, and Mahomes. And if you left any of them off, then that's far worse than putting Matt Stafford at 6, if you ask me.
Right.
So anyway, those were my two honorable mentions. I mean, Mayfield, what he's continued to do in terms of just, winning, like that's one of the things. I mean, it's the reason that I had Herbert all the way down at 10 is because, even though it shouldn't be, winning is a quarterback stat. The reason that two-time Super Bowl champion Eli Manning wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer is because he didn't win another playoff game outside of the 2 seasons that he won the Super Bowl, and that his career record was like dead even at 500, right? So winning is an important thing, and the reason that it is a quarterback stat to some extent is because we've seen the examples of when you have great everything else and your quarterback is bad, you can't do anything. And we see that at all levels of the sport. So Baker Mayfield winning with, not much around him, coaching wise and personnel wise, is something that's really, really impressive to me. And his grittiness, I think is really, really impressive. Jaden Daniels, it's tough. The reason that I didn't really think about him, his rookie year, like we said, was just so good. His second year was just so bad. I mean, again, he was hurt, but the drop off from what he looked like his rookie year to his sophomore year, was just so drastic that I was like, I actually don't know what Jaden Daniels is, and I feel like, I need to see something else to figure out, like, okay, were those literally the exact opposite ends of this spectrum? And if so, then if he's right in the middle of that, I don't necessarily know that makes him a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. If it's the direct middle of what his first season was and his second season was. So anyway, that's something that just time will tell with him. But those Caleb Williams. I echo everything that you said. Would just like to see him get more efficient. But he is also one of those stars on the rise, and efficiency is the only thing keeping him off the top 10 for me.
For sure. Moving into the top 4, you obviously pointed out the 4 dudes who are basically gonna be here, and they're the 4 dudes that have been here, and I have decided to not move off of those 4 dudes. And the last of the pack of those 4 dudes is Joe Burrow. I just think that his ability as a professional, as a leader, as a dude who can dink and dunk and choose when to throw the ball downfield, choose when to be aggressive, be a high-end game manager, well slinging the ball when he needs to. He does it basically just as good as anybody, and he's dealt with BS in Cincinnati. He has been on a roster since they made the AFC Championship that's had a disaster defense, that's had a disaster offensive line, that has had really questionable run games since then. And they haven't always made it. They haven't been making the playoffs, but they've still been able to win a bunch of games because of Joe Burrow, because of this offense. And man, it's felt like a 4-person roster for the better part of 3 years now, where it's been Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Trey Hendrickson. And then it's just ancillary pieces who are average at best. Like it's been 4 dudes and nothing else for the better part of a couple of years here. But Joe Burrow, I just want to point out what young Joe Burrow was that last year at LSU when he won the Heisman and had an insane season, like broke the record charts kind of season, into his rookie season before he tore his ACL. Joe Burrow was a play extender that was slippery and who could break tackles and who could make plays on the move. And I'm curious, as we stack a couple of healthy Burrow seasons here, if we're going to see a sort of younger Burrow being comfortable extending plays a little more again. Because he's not as immobile as like a Stafford or a Goff, but he's not a mobile extending dude like a Lamar or a Daniels or even like a Drake May. And I think that we could see a Joe Burrow that could kind of regain some of that mobility. I think his ability to throw at volume where everybody knows they're throwing the ball and he can still throw the ball. He can rip it down the field. He can throw it in the seam. He can throw crossers. I just think that Joe Burrow's the type of dude who, in almost any other situation, like we're like, he's a Hall of Famer and he might still end up a Hall of Famer. But it's like you can put him in the same breath as some Hall of Famers as far as the look, the feel, the play. But the postseason success just hasn't been there since the back-to-back AFC championships and the single Super Bowl run there. But Joe Burrow, I think this could be his best offensive line this year, so we see him get some protection. This could be his best defense since the defense was good. And I think that the other players with T. Higgins being paid, Jamar Chase being paid, the offense should be just as good, if not better, and the defense should be much better. And so I think that this would be a season that they should be challenging for the division, that they should be 10-plus wins this year. And I think Joe Burrow's been the epicenter of why they win football games. Last year, the team was awful when Joe Burrow was out with Jake Browning, who has won some football games in Cincinnati because the head coach is terrible and Joe Burrow's amazing. And Joe Burrow's just how amazing he is, I'm never going to gloss over that because he's a great player. So Joe Burrow's my number 4 quarterback.
Yep. Yeah. He's not here for me yet, but he's coming up soon. Yeah, and I echo everything you said. The only thing that I will say is I hope that we get a full, 17 to 20-year career out of him.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for concern, they were showing the stats this last season. Andrew Luck, who retired early because he was tired of getting beat up, was getting beat up far less than Joe Burrow was at this point through their careers, which is really, really rough. So I do hope that offensive line is improved. My number 4 is Dak Prescott. This is where I've got Dak Prescott.
Oh, that's awesome.
You said a lot of really positive things about Prescott that are all true. And if we look at his last 2 full seasons, the 2024 season, he got hurt. In 2023, he had 69. His completion percentage was 69.5. He threw for 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns. His QBR that year was 73.4, and his pass rating was 105.9. Last year, complete season, threw he 67.3 completion percentage, 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns. His passer rating was 99.5, QBR 70.2. The difference between those 2 seasons, though, was a 12-5 season in the first and a 7-9-1 season in the second. However, obviously you can see that those 2 differences had nothing to do with him. The only difference in interceptions in those 2 seasons, he threw 1 more pick this past year than he did the prior year. But completion percentage, yes, a little bit lower. QBR a little bit lower, but not that much lower. He actually threw for more yards this past season on less completions, right? Like he is good enough to make the Cowboys a competitive football team in the NFC. I firmly believe that. When we talked about a couple weeks ago we were talking post draft and stuff like that, and it was like, what do we view the few, and it was the AJ Brown trade, and what's going on. The NFC East is just always weird, and what do we view the four teams like going into this season in order. I had the Cowboys at the top because I genuinely think that Dak Prescott is good enough to keep them there. um while I think that overall Mike McCarthy is a better coach than Brian Schottenheimer, I think that Schottenheimer is young enough and new enough that he's willing to recognize his blind spots and his weaknesses, unlike Mike McCarthy was when he was Dak Prescott's head coach. And so I like the chances of them being able to significantly improve this year. He was willing to fire Matt Eberflus. He's willing to recognize, hey, I'm too green behind the ears. I don't know this stuff yet. Let me bring in guys who do know this stuff and we can make this thing better. And so I think that Dak Prescott is poised to have another amazing year. They're right now they're we're not talking about Cowboys contract drama right now because Pickens has signed the franchise tag and has said he'll play on it, which you rarely see, and has been, there and in the facility and doing his work. And so you get another year of Dak Prescott with George Pickens and CD Lamb. I think they'll have a more improved running game this next year as well. They have to have an improved defense. One, they drafted defense just so well this year, so well. And so obviously that was a big important part of it, but it can't be worse than what it was last year. I mean, seriously, he threw 30 touchdowns and 4,500 yards and they only won 7 games. Like, so I think that he's going to have another really, really great year. And when we stack up his 2026 season compared to all of the other quarterbacks' 2026 seasons, it's going to be definitely at or near the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dak Prescott's just so good, and I just agree with everything you said. I just think that I couldn't have him this high, but I wanted him up high. That's for sure. But man, his ability to produce insane offense is really true. Like his offenses are always great on the Cowboys, and they have some BS offensive lines and some whack defenses, and he still can throw the ball, man. He can throw that thing, that's for sure. Moving on to my number 3, I've been playing with it a little bit, and I think just from talking with you today that I decided to flip 2 dudes. I have Mahomes at 3. I thought about Mahomes at 2, but I decided on Mahomes at 3 because I thought when comparing him to the other 2 dudes that I'm going to have above him that Mahomes, his big thing to me, his superpower is he can do whatever is needed and he can limit his mistakes to basically never. Like the one game that I blame him for, like he's the one who really screwed it up, was the Bengals game when they won the AFC Championship over the Chiefs. That was the game where I was like, okay, Mahomes actually was the one that was the reason that they lost. He threw that interception that I believe was going into the second half or right out of the second half into double coverage and had no reason to be that aggressive. But he just has a superpower of scaling up and down to whatever the team needs. Young Mahomes was slinging the ball 5,000 yards, 50 touchdown season in 2018. And the offense was unbelievable, 33 points per game. It just insane, like an insane offense. And that was with Hill and Watkins and Hunt for half the season and Kelsey in his prime. And that offense was high flying and they were winning shootouts. They were going to win that shootout against the Patriots in the AFC Championship. And he would have gone into the Super Bowl against the Rams, who they had played in the 50-53 game or the 51-54 game that was supposed to be in Mexico City. And it would have been a rematch. And I think he would have had a shot in that game. But D Ford lines up offsides and he loses that game. But Mahomes played incredible as a young player in shootouts. And then Mahomes is a middle-aged player now in his later 20s, the 22 season, the 23 season, winning Super Bowls. Mahomes was dinking and dunking, being selective, matriculating the ball down the field. And he was winning games where he was throwing it to Jerick McKinnon, to an older Kelsey, to young Rashee Rice in 2023. Like, they just had some BS receiving cores. Juju Smith-Schuster being their top receiver, like it was whack, and they were able to win Super Bowls with a defense run game, Mahomes being efficient, and they were able to win games when he was lighting the league on fire. I think if Mahomes can adjust his game to slow down the pace, to ramp up the pace, to be aggressive sometimes, to be conservative sometimes, to extend plays when needed, to not extend plays sometimes, that he can just be whatever your offense needs. But this season for 2026, can he be whatever your offense needs coming off a knee injury? And I think that that's just why I knocked him down just one peg, where it's like, can he, if the defense is bad this year, can he win shootouts? I don't know that he can in 2026 specifically, just for one season. Like you said, would I have him be number one if I was taking a player for the next decade or for the next 5 years? I'd take Mahomes top two for sure, if not number one for sure. But this season, an ACL is a major injury that it's not what it used to be where it could be career ending. But for one season, I think he's going to have to slow into it. And he attacked his rehab and is going to keep attacking it. And probably he's going to be healthy for week one enough to play. But is he going to be able to be at the level of the two dudes above him this season? I don't know. And so that's why I have Mahomes number 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And I echo all of that. And again, like I said, 7 is the lowest that he will ever be when I do one of these lists, you know? And you mentioned the knee injury stuff. Also, you know what makes coming back from injury a lot easier? Having a really, really good offense and skill players around you that I just don't feel like the Chiefs have right now. And I feel like because of that, you know, when we saw these teams that Mahomes did get to the Super Bowl, like you said, that it's like Juju Smith-Schuster is your top receiver. What on earth is this? It was because he was able to pull them, you know, put them on his back and take them there. And I'm just concerned. One, I think those teams were more, you know, had a better likelihood of being able to do that than the team that they currently have. And he was, you know, younger and healthier. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. My number 3, this is where I've got Joe Burrow. Um, you know, like when you look at Joe Burrow and you look at what he's done and his body of work, whether he's been healthy or unhealthy. So last year he was not healthy the whole year. They went 5-3 though when he was the quarterback, and he completed 67% of his passes. You know, 17 touchdowns to only 5 picks. Like just all in all, really really solid play. Even though he was, you know, not healthy, but when he was, you know, it was great. The year before that, they went 9-8. That was the year that they started, like, you know, what was it, like 1-6 or something, and then he rattled off 8 of the next 10 games, you know, trying to fight their way in. He threw for 4,900 yards, 43 touchdowns, and only 9 picks. You know, like he is so good, and he is so good despite facing injuries. He is so good at putting teams on his back, you know. And again, Mahomes might prove this year that he's amazing at that too, but we just haven't seen it yet, so it's hard to know. Um, so yeah, so I mean, I really love Joe Burrow. I think that despite how bad of a team the Bengals look like they should be this year, both organizationally, coaching, and, you know, other aspects too. I think that they are they are the most secure team in the AFC North in terms of you don't have a new coach coming. You didn't have quarterback questions throughout the offseason like 2 of the 4 teams did. You do have high caliber wide receivers for your quarterback to throw to. You did improve your offensive line. You know, you did improve your defense, right? You're able to take care of both of those things, not just one or the other. That I feel like the Ravens really didn't do both of those things. They did one, not the other. I think that he's primed to have his best shot at making the playoffs in years. And at the same time, I'm surprised that Zach Taylor wasn't fired last year. You know, like that's just how wacky the AFC North is right now. Um, but yeah, no, I'm a firm believer in Joe Burrow. And so yeah, I've got him at number three here.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Joe Burrow's a great player. And I think having him three, considering the injuries to other top quarterbacks, it makes sense to me. Like, Joe Burrow's just so great. And even though he has injury issues, he just produces at such a high level with such BS around him in a lot of ways. Love me some Joe Burrow. Zach Taylor staying in Cincinnati still this year is so funny. Every other AFC North head coach who we all think's better than Zach Taylor. Stefanski got fired because the Browns sucked. I would take Stefanski 10 times out of 10 to Zach Taylor. It's not close.
Yeah.
It's not particularly close. And Tomlin and Harbaugh, of course, much better than Taylor as well. But Joe Burrow, man, still, even when the offense looks great and the defense looks improved, it's like, but there's that. There's your sucky head coach who gets paid poorly because the ownership is bad. But, man, moving on to my number two, he's a dude who's been up here for a long while. That will be two-time MVP Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is incredible. He's a worthy two-time MVP. He's an offense unto himself. He's a dude that I don't think people remember always the kind of BS he dealt with his early 2018, 2019 years. 2019, he won the MVP. A main contributor on that offense at receiver was Willie Snead. Willie Snead is Willie Snead, bro. He was undrafted to the Saints and produced with Drew Brees. But, man, that dude made it out the league straight up after that. Lamar was throwing it to bums and Mark Andrews and then likely at tight end, and that was basically it. His running games, he had that MVP season with Mark Ingram as his running back. Mark Ingram, who was good for the Saints for a number of years, but got his job snatched by Alvin Kamara when they were thunder and lightning for 2 years. And then he went to Baltimore, and Lamar won the MVP, and Mark Ingram was good. And that's what Lamar was dealing with, winning an MVP. And then he proceeded to get better. Lamar won an MVP and then became a great passer. That's insane. He said, I'm the best running threat in the league, running back or quarterback, basically. And then he proceeded to just become an efficient passer. He knows how to throw the ball inside, outside, on the move. Like, I just think that Lamar can basically do whatever he wants. And him being who he is and being at two, the only reason he's not at one, he's a two-time MVP. The dude who's going to be number one for me is only a one-time MVP. But Lamar Jackson has playoff failings that disappoint me to a level that the dude at number one, it just doesn't. And that's because Lamar Jackson plays his worst games in the playoffs. And last year, in what's basically a playoff game when they lost to the Steelers, it wasn't his fault. He played well against the Steelers. He had shot plays. He had busted coverage plays. And Tyler Loop just sold the game. Like, let's not get that twisted. Loop just missing that kick. That's not on Lamar. Lamar, I think that we could see the best version of playoff Lamar in 2026. And I think that if he got good skill position players around him, Derrick Henry's incredible still as an old running back. But, man, Rashad Bateman plays solid with Lamar Jackson. Zay Flowers plays good with Lamar Jackson. But, man, if they could really ratchet up that wide receiver core, if they had been the ones to trade for A.J. Brown, like, I wouldn't have had doubts that it's like MVP 3 coming here for Lamar Jackson. And I think that him being number two, nobody, it seems like, has him ever as the number one quarterback. But I think that if you just take away the playoff shortcomings, he could be number one for anybody. And Lamar Jackson's that good. He's a great player.
Yeah, I think and my all of my ratings, and maybe I leaned a little bit too hard into like what their situation is, like going into this year, and but also thinking about literally just 2026, and what I think that will look like. I think that Lamar Jackson, again, it's like Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, and Jackson are 1A, A through D when it comes to the, like, you're choosing a quarterback for the next 10, 5, 3 years, right? You're choosing one of those four. And so I echo everything that you said about, Jackson in terms of his skill level and everything like that. For me, the reason that I have him down at 6 is just because I think that they didn't do enough this offseason to help improve, what he has. Like, yes, getting, Venga out of Penn State was the way to go, but at the same time, you know, Kenyon Sadiq was there. That would have been a guy he could throw the ball to and you could trust that he could throw the ball to, right? So stuff like that was more, what's around him, less about him himself that, has him down where they are. If we're doing a thing where we've like, hey, everyone has Sean McVay as their coach and play caller and has, the Lions offensive line of 2 years ago and has the, Bengals receivers and has Derrick Henry to hand the ball off to, yeah, Lamar Jackson is, top two, maybe three, but definitely top two, right? So, cool. Okay. My number two, this is where I've got Josh Allen. This is where I've got Josh Allen. Like you said, he is an MVP. Some say fraudulent MVP. I don't think I would ever go there, but also the case certainly is out, when you look at his numbers from that year compared to Lamar Jackson. My concern with him is I've just seen his productivity dip. Um, for over the last 3 years, yards, um, touchdowns, they've dropped. Um, he's gotten much better at taking care of the football than he used to be. We're looking back 23, 18 interceptions, 22, 14, 21, 15, but he still had 10 picks last year. So the year that he won the MVP was like, oh man, he only had a third of the interceptions he had the year before, and yes, his he had just a slight dip in touchdowns and slight dip in yards, but he really cut out those turnovers. Well, last year the yards and the touchdowns went down again, but the interceptions started to creep up again. So so that concerns me a little bit. It also concerns me that the Bills basically didn't do anything to give him better pass catchers. They traded for DJ Moore. I think that we need to start calling DJ Moore what he is, and he's a wide receiver too. So you've got your wide receiver one as a wide receiver two, Keon Coleman, who is not matured enough yet. Um, like there's some stuff there. James Cook is good, but and there's also like, okay, when is Kincaid going to finally take the step at tight end? You know, um, Outside of all of that, Josh Allen is by far one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He is, I mean, he's like a power forward playing quarterback. Like he's big, he's a beast. He will run over you or run through you. He will evade you. He will throw the ball all over the place. Typically takes care of it, though there are some times, things get away from him. Um, I would like to see Josh Allen get back to maybe being a little bit more aggressive. Like I feel like over the last couple of years we've seen him maybe like kind of tone it back. And of course, between 23 and 24, that was significant because again, he went from 18 picks in 23 to 6 picks in 24. But also I feel like that was one of the things that made him special and made defenses pause a little bit was that like, well, he can literally do anything. Like oh, he would never throw it, into triple coverage. No, he might, like, and, so, but anyway, Lamar Jackson, by far, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Again, if I would, he would be on the short list of if I could choose a quarterback for the next 3 years, 3, 5, 10, 15, whatever. He's up there, and congratulations to him and his wife Haley on their daughter that was recently born. So
Yep. And that leads to my number one quarterback, who you were just discussing, who of course would be Josh Allen. Everything you say, I echo. I just think that Josh Allen's built in a lab that, well,
whoops, sorry.
All good. I just think that Josh Allen's built in a lab, and it harkens back to 2021 when there was the 23-second game? 17 second game. 23-second game that he lost to Mahomes. I wasn't able to watch the entirety of that game because I was working that night and I was running around delivering pizzas. My dad, for some reason, wasn't working that night, even though I was working at his pizzeria. I'm running around delivering pizzas, and he's texting me, and he's saying, "Who's this big ass mofo who's like giant and running over people and slinging the ball? And where do you get one of those?" And I said, "You don't. They don't exist besides him, basically." And it's just like, he's giant. He can run over you. He can run around you. He can throw it past you. He can lob it over you. He can break down a defense even if they have the perfect play call, and he can just win on his own. He can have BS around him and win football games. He can have BS around him and win divisions. And he's had to play with defenses that regular season were good, but playoffs, it's been a bunch of shootouts. He's just the sort of player that I would pick number one on the playground, and I would pick number one for basically any season in his prime. Even in a league that has Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to pick against Josh Allen. That's why the last couple of years where Mahomes wins the Super Bowl in 2022, 2023, and people were like, but Josh Allen, like, he's bigger, he's got a stronger arm, he's running around more. And I don't know that I would say that back then, where Mahomes was coming off of an MVP season and back-to-back Super Bowls, which was insane. But Josh Allen is just an insane player, and he has all the tools that I could ever want. And I just feel like Josh Allen is the kind of dude that Jack's gone for a second. So I'm just going to mill on, keep talking until he comes back. You okay? I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It just like kicked me off out of nowhere.
I don't know, but that's okay. I was just milling on about Josh Allen. You said earlier we're not building a Madden quarterback. If you basically ramped up every stat outside of decision-making, they're basically at a 99 for Josh Allen. Decision-making might be at like an 80, but when everything else is a 99, it's like, who cares? Josh Allen lost a game against the Broncos, and he made a bad mistake in that game. And making mistakes when he doesn't have to is hard. And that's kind of what holds him back for me. But when you get everything else, you get all the tools, you get the ability to play in slow pace offense and fast pace offense, you get the arm strength, you get the mobility, you get just the raw break the game sort of ability that he has that almost no other quarterbacks have. Like, when it comes to being special, Josh Allen is a dude who, I don't know that there's a QB from any era that's quite this big, this strong, this mobile. And that's not to say he's the best of all time. That's not to say he's the most talented of all time. But if you just measure them all up and just look at them on the playground, like, Josh Allen's that dude. And I would still bet on him. My hesitation, Josh Allen doesn't get injured like that. Lamar Jackson got injured this last year. Both of these dudes are top quarterbacks in the league. Are they going to have the 15-year career like you're talking about? Josh Allen could have a Cam Newton type career where he just gets his shoulder torn up by TJ Watt, and then, like, what happens after that? Lamar Jackson, speedy kind of quarterback. What happens if he blows out his knee like RG3 back in the day? We don't know. I don't hope for any of those injuries. But they're the types of quarterbacks that I could see being like, well, he's not Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, so he can't sit in the pocket and be an MVP in his 30s. But if they can stay healthy, if they can have that long career, I'm going to be the most happy sports fan in the world, even though neither of them are Steelers and both of them are in the AFC. They're just those kind of dudes. And I think Mahomes is going to stick around either way, whether he wants to or not. He's just that kind of dude. He's that competitive. But Allen and Jackson, I just want their careers to be as long as possible. I love having them around, man. They're great.
Cool. My number one is Matt Stafford. When you look at the body of work that Matt Stafford put together last year, it's unbelievable. 4,700 yards, 46 touchdowns, only 8 picks. His completion percentage was 65%. He completed 388 passes, okay? 236 of those, so roughly two-thirds of the passes that he completed went for first downs. He led the league with 236 first downs last year. Um, Not a stat that we talk about much, but also when it's that high, like that's crazy. Um, the only reason to me, looking at it, the reason that the Rams did not win the Super Bowl last year is because Seattle had such an insane defense and the Rams defense was not good. And the Rams have addressed that this year. They've traded for Myles Garrett. They traded for Trent McDuffie. It's highly likely that Aaron Donald will come out of retirement at some point
Mhm.
this year. Um, they recognize this is our window, and we're going to make sure that our defense isn't the reason that it doesn't happen because our offense clearly was not. Um, I think that, and you talked, the reason that you had him as low as you did is because you talk about like, oh, well, mobility is so important. And I just couldn't disagree more when you see the body of work that was what he did without, the same mobility as Mahomes and Jackson, right? Mahomes and Allen and Jackson. Well,
Mhm.
Mahomes too, when he was healthy, right? Lamar Jackson didn't make the playoffs last year. Matt Stafford was a, passable defense away from potentially winning a Super Bowl,
Mhm.
and no, he wasn't mobile. But again, and that's why I said we're not creating a Madden quarterback, right? Yeah, sure. On Madden, the guys who are mobile, they're, that's going to be so much higher. They're over, going to be closer to 99 overall than a guy like Matt Stafford because of that. But I don't care about that. I care about the product that you put on the football field and where your success lies on the football field and your team's success because of how good of a player you are in the grand scheme of a game and in the grand scheme of what your team does in that game. And when you're looking at that, Matthew Stafford was by far number one last year, and I think that he's going to be number one this year as well because the question marks that I see with some of these other guys. The five guys that you had above Stafford: May, Burrow, Mahomes, Jackson, Allen. I see question marks with all of them. The question mark with Stafford is his mobility,
Mhm.
and again, I don't think that, with what they do, I don't think that that'll matter very much. Um, so yeah, I really really believe in Matthew Stafford. I think, when this season is over, he will have the best season of any of these quarterbacks. The 2026 season, I think that he might go back to back MVP. Um, I do like I think that he can. I like what he has to throw to. I like the consistency of what he has to throw to. The consistency at coach. I like the consistency with the offensive line. Like all of those things, I really really like about what he has going for him this year. And I think that they're going to be a really really great team. Like the year that the Bengals went 9-8, it's like, well, statistically, Joe Burrow probably should have been the MVP. It's like, yeah, but the team wasn't very good, right? I think that this team is going to be very good. I think that the NFC is going to be the Los Angeles Rams Invitational going into this year. At least that's how it looks right now. Obviously, not a single game has been played yet. Training camp hasn't even happened yet. But as of right now, which is when we're doing this, it looks like it's going to be the LA Rams Invitational. And the reason that it is because of how good that quarterback is going to be, along with some other things. But as we've already discussed, you can't have it without a good quarterback.
Mhm. As you're saying that, like I had Stafford at 6, and I think it could be very likely we see Rams win the Super Bowl. Rams have the MVP in Matthew Stafford. Rams have the decoy in Myles Garrett. Rams have the comeback player of the year in Aaron Donald. Rams have the coach of the year in Sean McVay. Like Rams win 15 plus games in the regular season. Like I think the Rams could shatter everything, and I feel okay with having Matt Stafford at 6 because like they're shattering everything because they're amazing. Like Matt Stafford's amazing, and being a top 6 quarterback for me still means he's amazing. Drake May's amazing. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, they're all amazing. But Matt Stafford, I agree that like I could see them shattering everything this year and winning the Super Bowl, and they should be the favorites. They're an incredible team. And
Mm-hmm.
that takes away nothing. And you having him at number one, I completely understand why.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting after next season to look at. our 10 and be like, okay, where were we off? Because we will be off. It's not like, and obviously we differ on things, right? So, like, again, we're looking at just 2026, right? What happens? What are the results? What does what do things look like, for the 2026 season? I think that looking at my list again, if I'm choosing a quarterback that I want for the next 3 years, there are guys that are on my list who I don't think would be on my list. There are guys that are low on my list that would be much higher on my list,
Mhm.
and that's just sort of the nature of it, and it's the reason that the games are played, right? Because of course, in the perfect scenario, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is number one, but Chiefs don't have the perfect scenario this year. So that opens the door, which makes it fun, which is why it's sports, right? Because it's not predictive, it's not written, it's not fiction. We are going to, no matter what, everyone is going to lace up and strap on the helmet and step on the field, and we'll see what happens, which is why we enjoy it.
Yep. So you want to run down your 1 through 10 right now, just for the audience, so we can have it
Sure.
all on one spot.
Sure. Yes. I'll do 10-1. At 10, I've got Herbert. 9, I've got Love. 8, Goff. 7, Mahomes. 6, Jackson. 5, May. 4, Prescott. 3, Burrow. 2, Allen. 1, Stafford.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I've got 10 Jaden Daniels, 9 Jordan Love, 8 Dak Prescott, 7 Justin Herbert, 6 Matt Stafford, 5 Drake May, 4 Joe Burrow, 3 Patrick Mahomes, 2 Lamar Jackson, 1 Josh Allen.
All right. So there you have it, everybody. We'll probably do this with some other positions here throughout the summer. And though obviously it won't be as fun and as polarizing as quarterback, but still we'll do it. That could be fun. We're looking for stuff to do.
Mhm.
Um, we're already late. Let's talk about it real quick. Um, the NFL will not be holding a supplemental draft for Brendan Sorsby. The NFL, I think, taking the best stance of any group that has had to be connected with him, of basically saying, hey, you gave us 3 days notice and it's clear that you're just doing this because you can't play in college, and that's not good enough for us to do a supplemental draft. So you will not be drafted this year. Your best chance is to wait for the 2027 draft. Obviously, Brendan Sorsby's people are planning to sue the NFL because, according to them, the NFL, the CBA with the NFL Players Association means that there should be. But the big kicker with that is, guess what, Brendan Sorsby? You're not part of the NFL Players Association because you're not in the NFL. So, not exactly sure how that's all going to play out. But really quick, Nick, 30 seconds. What do you think of the NFL's decision? No supplemental draft for Brendan Sorsby.
I completely get it. I think this is a little bit of the NFL backing college football and their decision, because college football is basically the feeder into the NFL, and the NFL doesn't have to pay college football anything for all these lovely players that college football
Mm-hmm.
gives them. And I think that the NFL doing college football is solid there. And I think if Brendan Sorsby, like, it was a situation where it wasn't he was banned or gambling or something like that, and it was like uh some other strange reason for why he wasn't able to come back to school, where like if it had to do with like civil rights or something, and like he wasn't able to be in the state that he was trying to be in or something like that, like I could completely understand it. But given the nature of the situation, I understand why the NFL did it. I could have seen the NFL going either way on it. I'm curious what the ways that Brendan Sorsby can go from here are, because I could see him going to Canadian football for the season. Canadian football started already, apparently. I do not follow Canadian football, so I do
No.
not know. But I saw something that they're like 4 weeks into their season. If the Toronto Argonauts picked up Brendan Sorsby and I got to see some Brendan Sorsby tape on the Toronto Argonauts, I'd be happy to watch that because I want to see who he is as a prospect. But I think that Brendan Sorsby needs to do something to stay busy to be around football for the next year. Or he could be a name that just gets lost to history and never makes it into the league, even because of these gambling allegations and what happened with that in college football. He could be a player that never plays in the NFL, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point. But I do hope that there's a way for him to play football and that there is a path for him to have some redemption, because it's not like redemption that anybody else caused for him. This is him and him failing and him having to grow as a human being. And I think these
Mm-hmm.
young men in college, in this world that we're talking about gambling, like we talked about in our last episode, He's going to have to take some time to reflect, to grow as a person. And I think him, like everybody else in this world, is capable of that. And so I'm very hopeful for him as a human being.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that there is genuine sorrow and remorse for what he did. That was one of the things that was mentioned in the letter from the NFL league office, was it didn't seem like he was remorseful in his application for the supplemental draft. I hope that's something that he does work on. I think that this is really, I understand why Sorsby was so adamant and his people are so adamant about him getting into the supplemental draft, because also Brendan Sorsby, the prospect, compared to the other quarterback prospects that are coming out in the 2027 draft, which is basically what he's being told is he has to wait for. I mean, we're looking at like the 8 through 10 spot for him, like, because there's so much quarterback talent. And so he either needed this year to play to show, hey, put me in the conversation with Arch Manning, Dante Moore, and he's not going to get to do that. And all of those guys are going to get to show a product that he isn't going to get to show. And it would not surprise me if he's drafted at all. He's like the 10th quarterback off the board come 2027, if that's how this goes. But like you said, there's also a strong likelihood that it may just never happen. You know, the the scarlet letter on him might just be not something that teams want to mess with. And I don't blame them, because, sure, you know, uh Indiana University is not being punished for what Brendan Sorsby did. Cincinnati's not being punished for what Brendan Sorsby did. Texas Tech is kind of being punished because he's not playing for them, but in reality, when they decided, when everyone was like, this is not good, let's just not, then litigation against Texas Tech was dropped, all of that. So Texas Tech isn't getting penalized. But if you're an NFL team and something like this happens, the player gets suspended, but also that calls into question a lot of things about the organization too, and stuff that isn't good. And so it would not, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. And so it's sad. I hope that he gets things right so that things are okay for him moving forward. And we'll see what happens for him in the future. But all right, everybody. Yeah, this has been a long episode, but that's okay. These happen from time to time. We won't be recording next week. I'm out of town on vacation, so tune in a couple weeks to see what we have in store. I'm not going to tell you what it is because we don't know what it is yet, but we'll figure it out, and then you'll get to hear it. So, yeah, have a great week, everybody. Enjoy yourselves.